Namaskar, this is Akhilesh Bhargava. Welcome to Tit-Bits on Business and Finance with me. It was somewhere in 2006 that Mr. Anil Ambani became the chairman of Reliance Communications, RCom as we call it. And that's because that company came to his fold as part of the settlement of the separation dispute that he had with Mr. Mukesh Ambani, his brother. After he took over RCom, in the initial years, it did reasonably well, and it soon assumed a number 2 status in the Indian telecom industry, but its fortune started nosediving thereafter. Sometime in 2008-9, the telecom companies who compete with RCom unleashed a price war, which eroded the fortunes and profitability of RCom also. And the most important was, RCom made a very delayed move from CDMA technology to GSM, and that cost it a large share of the market share that it had. Because of that, it got into financial problems. It also got into business problems with a shrinking market share. Any potential or possibility of revival of RCom was put to rest after RGO came into picture. With the kind of price war that RGO instigated and the kind of competition it unleashed, few competitors could withstand it. And as I said, the chances of RCom's revival were completely put to rest. In the meanwhile, while RCom struggled, like any other Anil Ambani company, it became loaded with debt. And despite Mr. Ambani's promises to pay his lenders by selling his assets, he couldn't do that. He did try to sell his assets to RGO, but that deal did not materialize because the Department of Telecommunications demanded a guarantee from RGO, which it was not willing to give. The only company that managed to do some kind of a recovery from RCom was Ericsson. And that's because Ericsson very smartly managed to put Mr. Ambani in a corner under a case where he was declared guilty of contempt of court, and under the threat of arrest, he paid 550 crores to Ericsson. No other lender, vendor or creditor has been really able to recover its dues from RCom, and today that company is bankrupt and all these lenders, creditors and vendors stare at a huge loss because of unrealized dues. At present, RCom owes over 50,000 crores to banks and lenders. It also now has an additional liability of 28,314 crores on account of that Supreme Court judgment wherein it has to pay license fees and spectrum fees to the Department of Telecommunications. It is because of that in the quarter ended September 2019, RCom declared a quarterly loss of 30,146 crores, and that too on a turnover of a mere 400 crores. It's worth noting that at its peak, RCom used to have an annual turnover of over 40,000 crores. Today, it has a turnover of a mere less than 400 crores for a quarter. Under this situation, the company is actually bankrupt, which it is. Sometime in May 2018, the company was referred to the Insolvency and Bankruptcy proceedings in order to resolve the crisis or fold the company. It was taken over by a resolution professional, as we call it, RP. And once the RP came into place, the entire board of directors of RCom headed by Mr. Ambani was superseded. They no longer had powers of being the directors of RCom, even though on paper they were the directors. The resolution professional took charge of the affairs and assets of the company, and it is he who has been running the company since his appointment in May 2018. Very recently, the company has been declared bankrupt and it is now imminently facing liquidation. It is in this background that very recently Mr. Ambani and 4 of his colleagues who are directors on RCom, they put in their resignation. They resigned from the board of directors of the company. Mr. Ambani said in his resignation letter that the company has been under a resolution professional and now a liquidation resolution is imminent, and thus he has resigned from the board of directors of RCom. According to us, there are 2 facts which are relevant in this regard. The first is that it was in May 2018 itself that Mr. Ambani was superseded by virtue of the resolution professional being appointed who started running the company under whom the company now was. He could have resigned at that very point of time, but for some strange reasons, he did not do that. The other fact is that irrespective of when Mr. Ambani resigns, till the time he has been a director of the company, if there was any violation, if there was any misconduct or malpractice, and if any law said that it is the directors who will be personally responsible for such kind of violation, then despite Mr. Ambani resigning, he will continue to be liable for all those acts of misconduct or malpractice or violations where the law says that he would be personally liable. So his resignation is not going to do away with that liability which will be there on him for good till the liquidation does not take place. Moreover, when the liquidation takes place, an investigation will be carried out of the affairs of RCom, and in that, if there are any instances of siphoning of funds, etc., wherein it is found that Mr. Ambani was responsible for it, he would still continue to be liable. So his resignation does not change this scenario, which is the other fact. He cannot escape from his liability that is there as long as he has been a director of the company. So the question is, why has he resigned now? And why did he not resign earlier? Like we said, to us it's a mystery why did he not resign when the board of directors was superseded by the resolution professional in May 2018. And now when he resigns, according to us, the reasons for his resignation are multifold. The first one, with the company going into liquidation, the directors of the company are going to face hassles by way of summons, hearings, court appearances, maybe contempt of court and those kind of proceedings. And by virtue of putting in his papers and no longer being a director of the company when the liquidation proceedings will commence, he is avoiding the potential hassles and harassment that might take place by virtue of being the director of a company in liquidation. The second reason, according to us, that he would have resigned now is that with the company being in a completely bankrupt situation with an eroded business, there is going to be a deterioration in the assets of the company and there will be an aggravation of its liabilities. Mr. Ambani perhaps has resigned so that he is not held liable for such deterioration of the assets of the company and aggravation of the liabilities, which anyway is now the responsibility of the resolution professional under whose charge it is. The third reason could be that because he has got interest in other businesses, it does not suit his interest now to be the director of a bankrupt failed company in liquidation. He needs to avoid that taint as part of his profile of being on the board of other companies. That could be the other reason where now he has put in his papers when it is very clear that the company is heading for liquidation. The most important reason, according to us, why he is resigned now is that it is very evident that he has put in his personal guarantees at some point of time to different lenders or vendors as it must be. The recent case where a group of Chinese banks is claiming $680 million from Mr. Ambani because they claim that he gave a personal guarantee for that loan. The reason Mr. Ambani now resigns is that if any personal guarantee is invoked and he is made to pay for it, then to the extent of the payment that now goes from his personal assets, by virtue of not being a director, he will be able to claim that amount from RCom. Thus, by his giving up directorship, he comes into the position of what is called a financial creditor. And if any of his personal guarantees results in any loss to his personal assets for paying those liabilities, he will be able to claim a matching amount from the company. The fact that this resignation coincides with the Chinese bank's claim on him of $680 million gives immense probability to this reason. He needs to be compensated for the losses or the liabilities that he will incur or pay on account of guarantees given by him towards the affairs of RCom. And finally, of course, if he continues to be a director of a company under liquidation, it would certainly impair his other directorships and he would want to avoid that. These, according to us, are the potential reasons we believe that Mr. Ambani has put in his resignation now. But then the liquidation of RCom has just begun. There is bound to be an investigation in the affairs of the company, and we really do not know what would be the findings. If the findings are that there have been any kind of malpractices which come to the personal doorstep of Mr. Ambani, he would continue to be liable. And we really hope that this has been a professionally managed company without any such diversions of money, because if there has been such, then the ghost of RCom would continue to haunt Mr. Ambani for many years to come. This is Akhilesh Bhargava signing off till we meet again. Namaskar.